So, hi, welcome back to the 30 Second Success Podcast. I'm Laura Templeton, your host from 30 Second Success. If you've ever felt trapped by your own thoughts, if you've ever struggled to move forward after heartbreak, disappointment, loss, or a difficult season, or if you've ever wondered whether joy is something you find or something you choose, this episode is for you. Because sometimes the biggest obstacles standing between us and the life we want isn't what happened to us. It's the story we've been telling ourselves about it. And today we're talking about mindset, resilience, healing, authenticity, and the transformational power of reclaiming joy. But first, if you're someone who knows you're meant for more, but you've been second guessing yourself, overthinking your message, or struggling to clearly communicate your value, I'd love to invite you to check out the Brand Success Hub. The Hub was created for entrepreneurs, professionals, leaders, and purpose driven individuals who want practical support in building confidence, strengthening communication, clarifying their message, and creating more meaningful connections with the people around them. So, if you'd like to learn more, join us today. And by learning more, you can go to 30secondsuccess.com/hub. Now let's jump into today's conversation. So today's guest is Beth Dodd, two-time #1 best-selling author, public speaker, mindset mentor, and founder of Funny Sister LLC. Beth is the author of Laughter is an Instant Vacation and contributor to the Start Over book series, where she helps people navigate life's challenges with honesty, resilience, and a healthy dose of humor. Drawing from her experience as a mental health professional, her own personal journey, and the wisdom passed down from her father, Beth helps people identify the negative beliefs that are holding them back and replace them with healthier, more empowering perspectives. Beth, welcome so much to the show. Why don't you go ahead and share a little bit about yourself and what you're currently working on?
Oh, so great to be here. Thank you, Laura. Well, thank you. What I'm working on, a little bit about my story. Let's start there. I am a mental health professional, got there through my experiences. Something happened to me in my life, turned it around, went to school, became a mental health professional to help others. And I believe that's why we're here. What I do now is I help women find the joy that's been hidden or suppressed due to trauma and or toxic relationships, right? Or something that they just, as you say, they just can't get out of their mind. We really dig down to the root of it. What started as helping women in domestic abuse relationships, because that was what I had gone through in a first marriage. What started with that and helping women in that circle just expanded, because the more I got into it in the past 20 years, I've realized that everybody has something deep down in their roots that they have to clean up, or that they have to um, have a better mindset about. And after all, what is mindset? It's just the beliefs that we have about ourselves, right? About our instances, about our experiences. We create our own mindset. And I realized, as being a mental health professional, that not everybody has to be diagnosed with something. Some people just need a little guidance on how to navigate these times that we're going through.
I love that. So navigating what we're experiencing can be just that, right? It's in the moment. It's not necessarily a lifelong issue. It could just be what you're struggling with right now. So thank you for sharing that. You often say that the first step is identifying where negative self-talk comes from and how that impacts your life. So how does negative self-talk impact every other area of your life?
So negative self-talk becomes a habit after a while, right? And what I help people do is find the difference between stress, anxiety, and burnout, right? Because those three things are invoked by different emotions. And sometimes people will get all confused with, oh, I have anxiety, when really you're burned out from what you're doing, or oh, I'm so stressed out. Why are you stressed out? Because I'm worried about. Well, that's anxiety. That's the future. So first thing that we do is we have to find out where this negativity is coming from and what emotion evoked it. And as soon as we find out what emotion evoked it, then we find out what evoked the emotion. And then we dig deep, 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 deep. But until you do that, Laura, it just stays as a spinning wheel in your head. It's just negativity, and it's like a hamster wheel. You just can't get out of it. And you really just, that becomes what I call your mode of operation.
Hmm. So what happens when someone finally challenges those beliefs, those that self-talk and starts to release some of it?
So when they start to release of it, once they find out the emotion, when they find out what the emotion, then they find out what they're feeling. So they get the emotion, oh, I'm worried. Okay, that's anxiety. And then when we find the anxiety, we found out what is triggering your anxiety. And once we find out what that trigger is, then we realize how we can either reset it, revamp it, or dispose of it, right? And that includes anything. Anything in life, I don't care. Because I always say, and you talked about joy in the beginning. I always say, you get rid of everything negative in your life, you're going to be left with positive, right? It's just kind of navigating through and figuring out and finding that trigger.
I think that it's so powerful to be able to rewrite some of that self-talk when it's really ingrained in you. And I've witnessed such an amazing transformation in many women that have gone from, like that self-flagellation and have really embraced looking at themselves in a different manner and being grace, showing themselves some grace. And I think it's very powerful, the work that you're doing in helping people identify what that is and how to transform it and move in a new direction. So helping them to find the positive is so powerful. So what did working with clients teach you about human growth and transformation?
So working with clients, I find that some say they want help and they're just refusing to be coachable, right?
Mm.
They're always arguing for their limitations. Yeah, but so let's try this. Yeah, but I can't do that because, and the reason for that, Laura, is because they are addicted to that emotion. Right? It's not
Mm.
addicted. It's not, many addictions, but people become addicted to the emotion. It becomes, like I said, their mode of operation. It's the person that wakes up and right away, oh gosh, it's Monday. Oh, right? Right away. They haven't even gotten out of bed and it's Monday, like big deal. Whereas the other person is saying, okay, it's Monday, new goals, new chance to fix what I didn't get right. Right? That's right there is the difference in mindset. So when you have someone that's not coachable, that's a little bit harder, and you really just dig a little bit deeper to show them that the pathways that they've put in their brain of their mode of operation, we have to detour that.
Is it a detour or is it a rewrite?
It's a rewrite, but you have to detour first in order to continue to the rewrite, right? You have to have them make that first step. Okay, like it's like a road. It really is what your brain is. It's just a bunch of pathways, right? Like how many times have you driven somewhere that you've gone to 1,000 times, and before you know it, you're there? You weren't driving and going, okay, it's a left turn up here, or it's a right turn up here. You're just there, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, we're here already. It's because that is driven into your brain. That is a pathway in your brain, and that's what we
Mhm.
have to change on people in their negative self-talk.
Mm. That's a great point. We just recently moved back to, I love the analogy because we just moved back to where, back to Pennsylvania where grew up. And I know, and the other day we were driving in our old neighborhood and I didn't even, I'm so used to using a GPS where we're living now, but we were in our old neighborhood and I'm like, who needs a GPS? I know where I'm going.
I know where I'm going, right? And you didn't even have to think about those terms.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
great. And that's what we do when you wake up and you just right away your go-to mindset.
Right. So mindset has a lot to do with, that reprogramming piece. And I
Everything.
love that you dive into that with your clients. So you shared that writing laughter is an instant vacation after your father's passing became a defining moment for you in your life. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Oh yeah. Thanks for mentioning my dad. My dad was a motivational speaker. He was in sales, and then he got promoted to director of motivation. This was a worldwide company, and he would go around and motivating everyone. And when you're growing up with them, and you have a problem as a teenager, and it is the biggest problem anybody's ever had, right? Because according to you, and he comes with this motivation, you're like, yeah, yeah, okay, Dad, yeah, right, right, I hear you. And I tell you, Laura, when my dad passed away, and now as a mom, and adult relationships and a spouse, everything he said just hit completely different, right? And why? Because he ingrained it in me. So it was there. It just had to come out in myself. And I was never really negative, but now I was like an aha moment where it was like, I get it. I totally get what you're talking about the power of positivity and, finding the joy in things. And it was just a light bulb. That was the aha moment for me, a light bulb moment. So
So
I
how
felt
did
like
the
I should write it down and share it.
Okay, I was just going to ask you how how did the book help you process the grief and purpose?
Well, that was it, right? So it helped me. It was sort of an ode to my dad, right? Like my
Mhm.
way of saying, Dad, I got it. I'm a little late to the party. I always heard it and I did, practice it, so to speak, but now I'm living it, and that's the difference. You can practice something here and there, okay, but when you start to live it and it becomes who you are, totally different, right? And so when I wrote the book, I just wanted to put out there the simple steps that were taught to me as a kid that people, everybody's got to get started somewhere, Laura, right? It's not like I'm gonna sit here and tell you how your brain works. People aren't ready for that, the simple coping skills and the simple things that you can do every single day that will slow changes. I always say Rome wasn't built in a day, right? The Romans didn't start building Rome and say, "Oh man, this sucks. Like, let's quit." You know what I mean? They kept going and they kept building and they built an empire. They weren't like, "Who needs an empire?" Right? They kept going. It's the same thing with your life. Little steps end up with big results.
Beautiful. Your book, Laughter is an Instant Vacation, is available on Amazon, correct?
Yes, it is. That's on Amazon.
Wonderful, wonderful. I definitely I'm looking forward to reading that one. It's on my list. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
writing that because one of the things that you and I we resonate with one another is a lot of the work that I do. I give a lot of credit to my dad. My dad was always a conversationalist
Yeah.
and would just start talking with people and it's just been that journey of remembering who he was and how much of an impression he made on me. We used to think that my dad knew everyone. No matter where we would go, he was always talking to people like, how does daddy know all these people? And my mom, and then I finally realized it was just that he knew how to start a conversation with, anyone. And, just standing in a line at, Hershey Park, he'd like have a whole crowd of people in a
Yep.
conversation. It's like, he's like holding court.
Yeah.
So
That was my dad.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And I think there's something beautiful about coming home to that and really relating to it. And so thank you for sharing that your book was a dedication to your father and the
Yeah.
work that you're doing. So beautiful. Um,
Thank you.
and if this conversation is resonating with you, make sure you like, subscribe, and share the podcast with someone who may need this reminder today. Because sometimes people don't need another strategy. They need permission to let go of a story that no longer serves them. And that's exactly why we have these conversations here on the 30-Second Success Podcast. So, Beth, one of the things that I wanted to dive in a little bit more with you is about why humor is more powerful than we think. So, one thing that you've learned is that strategically placed humor helps people release anxiety and open up. So, why does humor work so well?
So humor, for the biological part of it, humor releases serotonin, dopamine, and all that stuff. That is just science, right? It's not. And when I say humor, just to clarify, and I put this in my book too. Listen, I'm not saying that everything is going to be funny, right? Grandmom dying or the things that we go through in life, some of them just are not funny, and they're hard to find the humor in things. What I'm saying is, if you can find the humor in the little things, in the everyday things, when these big events happen that are, trauma or drama, your go-to mode will be able to handle it a little bit easier than falling apart. And that is science. That is statistically known, right? So going through life without, you know, um, having a bad day at work and coming home and kicking the dog, right? Having a bad day at work and thinking, how could I have made that day better? So going through life that way, as opposed to everything is a big deal, will set you up for bigger events that are not as much fun. And
Mm,
that's how I actually frame it in my book.
I like that. And it feels so it feels so like life altering when you think about it in that perspective that, like really looking at it from the perspective of where can you find the joy? Where can you find the humor, even in the simplest things? And one of the things that you talk about is that you believe that happiness is a default setting. So share a little bit about that because I think I'm very curious about why you believe that.
Okay, so let's take um, a 4-year-old child. All that child wants to do is run, play. They will walk up to another little child, doesn't matter, boy, girl, color, religion, they don't know. They just want to be happy. They want to laugh. They want to giggle. And you want to know why? Because they have not been marred by the outside world. All they know is their default system, which is happiness. And it's the
Mm,
same thing with laughter, Laura. If you look at, have you ever, and I'm sure your listeners have, had a really rough time, I don't know, a breakup or a really bad day at work, and your girlfriend says to you, come on, we're going out. Let's go to a comedy club or let's go out dancing. And at the end of the night, you're like, thanks, I needed that. I feel so much better. That's your default system, right? That's
mm,
her taking you away from the outside external sources and bringing you back to your default system that I say God gave us, right? So it's happiness. And the best example is what I said is a little child. All they want to do is be happy. They know nothing else.
mm.
They just go
Beautiful.
back to just living.
Yeah. That's a beautiful example. And you're absolutely right because I'm sitting here thinking about my grandchildren. They
Mhm.
not only do they want to be happy themselves, they want to make everybody around them happy.
Exactly. And then you
Yeah.
become happy,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
They say happiness, laughter, it's all contagious. It is because it's
Mm-hmm.
energy, right? So I say, hang out with miserable people, you're going to end up miserable. It's just, I mean, that's just an old adage, right? Or, the 5 people you spend the most time with are the people that shape you. And it's all true. It's all true, and that's why when your grandchildren come over, you become happy because they're giving you their energy.
Mm. So how can leaders communicate and communicators use humor more effectively?
So when it's strategically placed, right? So I always say that nobody talks about the part in leadership where you can have the best team, the best resources, and all that great stuff. But if you have as a leader bad energy or your negative energy, you're not making those sales. You're not making those conversations, and those outcomes are just not coming to fruition, right? So as a leader, in a business, releasing, strategically placing humor throughout, lightening that. I find that people absorb things better when they are in a positive or a happy state. Anybody it's like when you have an argument. You have an argument. If you and I are arguing, I'm thinking about the next thing I'm going to say. I'm not even listening to you. People
Mm,
listen better when you're being funny or it's a happy, positive environment, right? And so leaders can use that in there. I mean, they don't have to sit there do a stand-up comedy routine, right? But strategically in their trainings or whatever they're doing, um, add a little bit of humor, and it people then they can absorb the next bit, right? And then it just kind of flows a little better.
mm. That's great advice. And I think you're absolutely right. It's so funny because I find that sometimes that, even when I'm reading other people's content, if it has a little bit of a humorous twist, I'm way more engaged to read the whole thing than I am just to, something that's dry and, humorless. So
And
I think,
why? Because it puts you to your default setting of happiness.
right,
Right? Everybody
right.
wants to feel good. That would put you to that default setting of happiness. So even if it's a heavy read, once you get a little
Mhm.
bit of lightheartedness, okay,
Mm,
then you
yeah,
go on. Makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, I think there's sometimes, you need to add that little bit of especially if it is a heavy read, you need to, soften it up somewhere in the middle so that it's like it doesn't feel so heavy. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think that's really a great point. So thank you for that. You often help people recognize when they're carrying someone else's issues. And I think this is something to really unpack for people. So why do you feel this is so common that we have a tendency to carry other people's issues?
So I think it gets to the point where people internalize other people's stuff, right? This happens a lot they feel subconsciously, Laura, they feel like that's what they're there for, right? Like, well, I'm his spouse, or well, I'm the mom, right? Or I'm the coworker that's going to fix this problem, and it's we're trying to fix everything, and our own energy is going out the door. So why do people do it? They do it because number one, they feel as though they have to. That's their role. Somebody's either they're mimicking a role that they saw. Like my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she ran that house like a business. When I got a family, I was working full time, but yet still trying to be my mom. I couldn't do it. Do you know what I mean? I was trying to carry that stuff. And this is what we do. And that originally, I found that originally in when I was working with domestic violence people and narcissistic people, like, they would internalize the issues that the person had and was projecting onto them as if it was their own. And then I
Mm,
realized as I started working with more people that people do that everywhere. It's not just in those situations,
mm,
you
mm.
know?
And yeah, and I think it's a matter of like protecting our own energy and our own identity. So, what are some of the practical steps that people can take to better protect their energy and to not carry someone else's issues?
Yeah. So to protect their energy is, and it goes back down to the stress, anxiety, burnout. You find out what, first of all, you need to protect yourself from, and you limit that association is number one, for example, right? So even if it's a spouse, even if it's a spouse, how do you protect your energy? You number one, don't give your energy out. And that's the number one thing. Don't give your energy. What we tend to do as people is we wake up and we have so much energy to do through to protect get us through the day. And I'll use a mom as an example. She wakes up, she has to get the kids to school. She's, talking about the husband. What are we gonna have for dinner? Then she's got to go to work. And then by 3 o'clock, she's sleeping at her desk because she has just expelled all her energy. Now, yes, does she have to do that stuff? She sure does, right? If that's her dynamic in her house. But what she needs to do is she needs to take that 10-minute break. Do some, this is what I do, just take the 10-minute break in between your day, because if you keep going, expelling all your energy, you don't have any for you. And that's the first thing you have to do is savor your energy in order to protect it. Because you can't protect
Mm,
energy you don't have. And then once you
mm,
start to, keep that energy and have a little bit of energy for yourself, then you learn the skills to protect it. And that's whether it's take a 10-minute break and do some breathing exercises, to regulate your nervous system or whatever. But you have to do that. And you don't have to. I suggest, because it's worked for many clients, that you do that throughout the day. Otherwise, you're going to get the same result.
10-minute breaks seem so easy to do, right?
Seems so
It's
easy.
not like you're asking people to, spend an hour doing self-care. It's 10 minutes.
It'd be
And
amazing what
it's
a box breathing exercise will do for you. Like
mm,
just take 10 minutes away from everyone, you regroup, you come back. Now, I'm not going to
mm,
say you're going to be, ready to run a marathon after that, and just go, go, go.
mm.
But learning to take time out for yourself, especially a busy person that is, in a leadership role, or such as yourself, running a company, doing podcasts, a mom, a grandmom, like without taking a time throughout your day for yourself. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a manicure, pedicure, massage. It doesn't have to be any of this great stuff. Just a little bit of breathing, regulate your nervous system.
Beautiful. I love it. So, we're kind of wrapping up here, and I don't want to. I love what you're saying about protecting your energy and really making sure that you are guarding your own, right? And really being able to be clear about that. How does that come into play from a business perspective of, like just really being that energetic person, that energetic being that number one, you're giving a lot of yourself, but number two, you're also in a place where you can share it, but you can also keep it to yourself, without feeling like, oh, I'm being selfish. Because I feel like sometimes we pour so much into everybody else, into our businesses, into our lives, into our families, and yet and that depletes us. So how do you see from a role of a business owner or a leader a way for us to, not want to say separate the two, but how do we pour that energy in that's needed and yet still maintain some for ourselves?
Mhm.
I know that you just gave us the practice of the breathing and taking breaks, but how do you help people find that balance?
So I find that in business leaders, especially, they have a hard time, not all, but many have an energy, depletion because they have a hard time with delegation, right? So if you're running a big company, the delegation is hard for a business leader unless they've been in the practice of leading, right? Like, oh, first time, it's like, well, this is my baby. I don't know if you can do it. You know what I mean? But it's delegation of certain things that you don't have to do preserves energy just
Mm.
right off the bat, right? Yes, as a leader, you have to be there, and it's like, I told somebody, you don't always have to be on. Being a business leader and being vulnerable and saying, listen, guys, I know this is a lot of work, or I know we have to do this. Let's work together. And as soon as you start the we instead of the I have to do everything, then you become the team and everybody shares their portion of the energy in it. I mean, this
Mm.
is a whole workshop, but it's one of those things, right? It's like, okay, I'm the leader, so I have to, make sure I do everything right. No, not at
Right,
all. Right?
right.
You're a leader and you've got a team. And even if you have a team of one, you're a team. So you're
Mm.
gonna stumble along those blocks and you're gonna just do it. And that way, I think, I don't know if I answered your question, but that it does preserve your energy when you realize that you're not, you are the leader, but you don't have to be the one at the top of the totem pole doing everything.
Right. I love that. And you just gave me this great insight into, even as a solopreneur, the team of one is can be supported in delegating some of the work to workflows that are set up through AI. So I think AI can be integrated to help you protect your energy. It's a tool that can be used. And so very quickly, what are your thoughts on that?
So that's it. Much of what I was talking about. We feel as leaders that we have to know everything and do everything. And it's okay not to know something, right? Like, listen, I'm not a technological genius. I'll be the first one to say it. I know what I know, and that's it, right? So I hire somebody, right? That kind of thing. Whatever it is that you don't want to, because when you try to, I'm not saying don't attack new things. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you can delegate something that you're not the best at and put your talents towards what you are good at, then you're not dispelling that energy into something that you really have to work at because you don't know what the heck is going on. I'm not a technological genius. I don't want to be, right? So I'm going to use the tools that come with it, whether it's AI, whether it's a virtual assistant, whether it's something to help me put my talents where they belong.
Love it. We're going to leave it right there. Thank you so much, Beth. Beth, before we wrap up, I'd love to give you the opportunity to share something directly with our audience. What's one piece of advice you would like to leave our audience with today?
That's a good one. There's so many, right? Be your authentic self. And that just kind of ties everything into it because we get stressed and anxiety and burned out and we internalize other people's things, and it's okay to be who you are, um, just the way that you are. If you find you want to work on something, you work on that. But you worry about, and this may sound selfish, but you worry about what's going on within you. And then it's sort of like the airplane where they say, put your mask on first and then put your child's mask on. Put your mask on first, okay? Work on you and get that as much oxygen and good energy in you. And then your light will just shine to everybody.
Beautiful. So, what's the best way for our audience to connect with you, Beth?
So they can connect with me on LinkedIn, Beth Dodd. I'm on LinkedIn, or my website, bethdodd.net, where they could book a 15-minute call with me if they want. We could chat, do a little coffee chat or whatever. And obviously, my funny sister is on Instagram, but LinkedIn and the website are probably the best way to get me.
Perfect. And I highly recommend having a conversation with you. I enjoyed our conversation so much. I couldn't wait to have you on the podcast. So thank you so much for connecting with me on LinkedIn. And I
Yes.
think I'm looking forward to more great conversations with you. I think you just have a beautiful soul. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Laura. It was a blast. So great to
Yeah.
talk to you.
Thank you. So, Beth, one thing I really appreciate about this conversation is the reminder that healing doesn't begin with our circumstances when our circumstances change. It begins when our perspective changes. So, when we stop allowing old stories to define us, and when we choose to believe something better is possible, because no matter what we've experienced, our past doesn't have to become our permanent address. And that's a powerful reminder to all of us. So, thank you so much for sharing that with us. If today's conversation reminded you that joy is still available, that healing is possible, and that your story isn't finished yet, I hope you'll carry that into your next conversation, your next decision, and your next season of growth. And if you are ready to strengthen your communication, clarify your message, build confidence in your voice, and connect with more authenticity in business and in life, I'd love to invite you to join us on the Brand Success Hub. And Beth has agreed to share the power of now, owning your story and writing your mindset as one of our expert trainings in the Hub. So the Hub was designed for entrepreneurs, professionals, leaders, and communicators who are done second guessing themselves and ready to communicate with more clarity, confidence, and compassion while learning practical strategies that actually work in real life. You can learn more at the 30secondsuccess.com/hub. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who may need the reminder that your loss doesn't have to become your location. Till next time, stand in your brand, trust your voice, and remember, success is just 30 seconds away.